The Galactic Alliance, a powerful coalition of advanced species, had long seen themselves as the guardians of the galaxy. From their lofty citadels, they maintained a fragile peace, projecting power and control over countless worlds. They established systems of order, enforcing their will with military might and advanced technology. The species of the galaxy bowed to the Alliance's might, except for one, the humans. On the remote planet of Earth, humanity lived in the shadow of the Galactic Alliance, relegated to a lower-tier status, their advanced technology barely noticed by the galactic elite. The Alliance dismissed humans as little more than a primitive species, unworthy of attention. They were often described as the apes of the cosmos, a crude, unrefined race lacking the sophistication of the Alliance's member species. The humans were left to their own devices, developing their world in isolation, as far from the galactic center as possible. But humanity, with its boundless creativity and determination, had other plans. The rebellion began with whispers. Scattered rumors among the more rebellious factions of human society spoke of technology far more advanced than anyone could have imagined. Some said they had discovered ancient alien artifacts buried deep within the Earth's crust. Others claimed to have reverse-engineered Galactic Alliance technology, mastering quantum mechanics and energy manipulation beyond anything the Alliance could fathom. It started in the underworld of Earth's megacities, where smugglers and rogue scientists began to speak of a new human weapon, something that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. The Alliance remained indifferent, dismissing it as the usual rumblings of humanity's desire for attention. But then, something unexpected happened. On the edge of the solar system, a large, unassuming object appeared in the asteroid belt. It was a ship, a vessel that seemed completely out of place. A small, clunky design, not the sleek, highly engineered warships of the Alliance. The ship's markings were not those of any known faction in the galaxy. It appeared to be human in origin, though the technology it employed was unlike anything the Alliance had ever seen. The ship was capable of warping spacetime, allowing it to appear and disappear from sight in an instant. Its energy output was off the charts, enough to rival the power of a fleet of Alliance battleships. The Alliance was intrigued but still skeptical. They sent a fleet of ships to intercept and investigate. But when the fleet arrived, they were met with resistance beyond their expectations. In a flash, the human vessel began disabling the fleet with precision strikes. The ship's weapons fired beams of energy that cut through the hulls of the Alliance ships as if they were made of paper. Shields buckled under the force, and the ships began to disintegrate in the vacuum of space. The humans, seemingly aware of every move the Alliance fleet made, coordinated their attacks with military precision. Within hours, the entire fleet had been decimated. The Galactic Alliance scrambled to comprehend what they had just witnessed. How could a species they had so thoroughly underestimated possess such technology? What kind of power had they awakened on Earth? Unknown to the Alliance, the human rebellion had already begun. The humans had been working in secret, building a fleet of ships powered by a mysterious new energy source. They had spent years in isolation, developing technology that could disrupt the carefully controlled systems the Alliance relied upon. Now, the time had come to strike. The first victory was a shockwave that rippled through the galaxy. The Alliance's leaders were forced to take notice, but they couldn't believe what they were seeing. The humans, so long dismissed, had caught them off guard. The spark of rebellion was no longer a rumor. It was real. As the human ship returned to Earth, the messages began to spread. We are no longer the underdogs. We are the future. The Galactic Alliance was forced to confront the undeniable truth: they had underestimated humanity. They had ignored a species capable of innovation, survival, and sheer willpower. What they had failed to recognize was humanity's ability to adapt, to fight back, and to unite when pushed to the brink. The humans would not be silenced any longer. The stage was set. A war was coming. And the Galactic Alliance was unprepared for the storm that was about to engulf them. The aftermath of the human fleet's victory was met with a mixture of disbelief, fear, and anger throughout the Galactic Alliance. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy's most powerful military felt vulnerable. A species they had written off as primitive and insignificant had just proven they could not only survive, but fight back with an unexpected ferocity. Back on Earth, the truth of humanity's rebellion spread like wildfire. The humans had long been preparing for this day, and the victory at the asteroid belt was only the beginning. Across the globe, once fractured human governments rallied together in the face of a common enemy. They united their forces, their resources, and their knowledge to face the threat that was now inevitable. The Galactic Alliance would come to Earth, and they would stop at nothing to stamp out this unexpected rebellion. The humans had learned much from the scattered remnants of ancient alien technology and reverse-engineered galactic weaponry. Their ships, although rudimentary by Alliance standards, were deadly in ways that caught even the most experienced fleet commanders off guard. Human ingenuity, combined with their ability to adapt quickly, was proving to be their greatest strength. And now, that strength was growing exponentially. The Galactic Alliance was scrambling. Their first response was swift, yet ineffective. Fleet after fleet was dispatched to Earth, their commanders convinced that a decisive strike would end the rebellion in one fell swoop. But with each wave of ships sent to invade, they found themselves outmaneuvered, outgunned, and utterly bewildered. Human ships had been designed to combat the exact strategies the Alliance used, and with each failed assault, the humans gained invaluable experience. However, it was not just military tactics that the humans were perfecting. They had begun to build a powerful network of allies among the galaxy's disenfranchised species. While the Alliance had maintained its dominance by forging alliances with only the most powerful races, many smaller, oppressed species had long resented their rule. These species had watched the humans rise with growing interest, and some had even aided the human resistance in secret, providing them with resources, intelligence, and sanctuary. What the Galactic Alliance failed to realize was that humanity's victory was not simply due to their military technology, but because of their ability to inspire. The humans had not only awakened their own species, but they had ignited the spark of resistance in others. The underdogs of the galaxy, from the aquatic Xyler to the insectoid Varesh, were quietly beginning to band together, each group inspired by the audacity and courage of Earth's people. Across the stars, protests were erupting on Alliance-controlled worlds. Systems once thought firmly under Alliance control were now witnessing uprisings, all fueled by the human example. The belief that freedom could be won had spread like a virus, and it was tearing at the fabric of the Alliance's empire. On the galactic capital planet of Vostra, the leaders of the Alliance gathered for an emergency summit. They were a diverse council of species, each more powerful and ancient than humanity could imagine. The Alliance's chief strategist, a cold, calculating Valar, a species known for their superior intellect and ruthless efficiency, stood at the head of the meeting. His tentacles, covered in glistening scales, twitched with agitation as he addressed the council. "We cannot allow this human rebellion to persist," Valar said, his voice calm yet filled with an underlying fury. "We underestimated them, and now they have become a symbol of hope to those we control. If we do not extinguish this threat immediately, it will spread across the galaxy. We will lose our grip, and the Alliance will collapse." A harsh murmur rippled through the room, but the council members knew he was right. The rebellion, though still in its infancy, was gaining momentum. The very fact that humans had driven back their fleets and survived in a galaxy filled with far more advanced species was proof of their potential. The council agreed on a course of action. A full-scale invasion would be launched against Earth, and they would not stop until humanity was crushed. It would be a war of annihilation, not just against the humans, but against any species that dared align themselves with them. But even as they made their plans, they could not shake the growing fear that the humans, with their unyielding spirit and resourcefulness, were not a species that could be easily defeated. Back on Earth, President Catherine Stryker, the newly elected leader of the United Human Government, prepared for what she knew would be the greatest challenge humanity had ever faced. Despite the successes of their small fleet and the growing resistance movement, she understood that this would be no easy fight. The Galactic Alliance's might was overwhelming. But the human spirit, she believed, was far stronger. "We will not go down quietly," she declared to her advisors, her eyes steely with determination. "We will show them what it means to underestimate us." We are not the underdogs anymore. We are the future. The stage was set. Humanity's struggle for survival had just begun. But the galaxy would never be the same again. The moment the Galactic Alliance began its full-scale invasion of Earth, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. It was the type of attack the humans had feared. Their home world would become a battleground, and the most advanced military in the galaxy would descend upon them with ruthless intent. But they were not alone. Humanity had anticipated this strike for years, building a network of defenses, and now their preparations would be tested. The Galactic Alliance had underestimated the depth of human resilience, their capacity to organize, and most importantly, their ability to surprise. The first wave of the invasion came as expected. Massive Alliance dreadnoughts appeared in Earth's orbit, accompanied by fleets of smaller vessels. The skies were filled with warships, their weaponry capable of vaporizing cities in a single blow. The sheer size of the invasion force was enough to terrify any other species, but the humans stood resolute. Earth's military forces, augmented by their most recent advancements, stood ready for the fight of their lives. But the first sign that this war would not go according to the Alliance's plan came when the human fleet struck. From the shadows of Earth's moon, a fleet of human ships, now numbering in the thousands, emerged. They were not the crude, hastily built ships the Alliance had once fought. They were sleek, efficient, and deadly, powered by energy sources the Alliance could not comprehend. The ship's stealth technology made them nearly invisible to Alliance sensors, and their advanced weaponry tore through the first wave of the invasion with terrifying precision. The Alliance was not prepared for the tactics that followed. Human ships, using guerrilla tactics they had honed in their history of conflict, scattered and regrouped constantly. They attacked in waves, never giving the Alliance the chance to form a unified defense. Each strike was calculated, hitting weak points in the Alliance ship's armor, targeting power systems and weapon arrays. For every battle the Alliance won, they suffered another loss in resources and morale. The human resistance also had an ace in the hole, an unexpected alliance with one of the most technologically advanced but secretive species in the galaxy, the Varesh. The insectoid race had long been oppressed by the Alliance, their homeworld exploited for its resources. Many Varesh had fled to Earth, recognizing a kindred spirit in the humans, who understood the harsh realities of living under the Alliance's thumb. Together, the humans and Varesh created an alliance that was more than just tactical. The Varesh had knowledge of advanced biological warfare, techniques that the Alliance had no countermeasure for. Using this knowledge, humanity developed weapons capable of infiltrating the very atmosphere of Alliance ships, causing chaos in the form of sudden, unexplainable failures in their life support systems and technology. But the biggest surprise came from the humans' ability to improvise. When the Alliance's dreadnoughts arrived, humans didn't just hide behind their defenses, they built new weapons, massive kinetic cannons powered by gravity wells, capable of launching huge projectiles at near-light speeds. They used abandoned space stations, mining platforms, and even derelict ships as makeshift artillery platforms. No one had anticipated humans could harness the power of such colossal, improvised weapons, but they did. And they worked. Within hours, the invasion force was already feeling the pressure. The Alliance's fleets, accustomed to total domination, found themselves struggling against an enemy that refused to fight by their rules. The first day ended in an Alliance defeat, an unexpected blow that sent ripples through their command structure. The human resistance didn't stop at space. On the ground, the story was just as harrowing for the invaders. Earth's cities, now united under a single banner, became fortresses. The human military was prepared for urban warfare, and the Alliance soldiers found themselves fighting in unfamiliar environments, their superior technology compromised by the unpredictable nature of human ingenuity. Guerrilla fighters, led by former soldiers, revolutionaries, and former prisoners of war, used the terrain to their advantage, setting traps, sabotaging supply lines, and launching surprise ambushes. One of the first major victories took place in the capital city of New York. Alliance forces had landed and attempted to take control, expecting swift subjugation of the remaining human forces. Instead, they encountered a fierce resistance from civilians armed with improvised weapons. They were outnumbered and ill-prepared for the level of civilian mobilization that occurred. The human fighters, including ordinary citizens who had no military training, used the city's labyrinthine streets, subways, and skyscrapers to their advantage, turning the urban sprawl into a deadly trap. The Alliance's soldiers, skilled in conventional warfare but unfamiliar with such an unpredictable opponent, were forced to retreat from New York in disgrace, leaving behind a huge amount of their equipment. This was not a quick war. The Alliance had always been accustomed to swift victories, but the humans refused to yield. The rebellion was more than a military operation, it was a testament to the human will to survive. The first blow had been struck, but the war had only just begun. The humans had proven that they would not be easily crushed, and the Galactic Alliance now had a new enemy, a resilient, cunning adversary that would push them to their limits. The galaxy would watch as humanity proved once again that it was far more than the underdog. They were a force to be reckoned with. The defeat at Earth's orbit shook the Galactic Alliance to its core. For the first time, they were faced with an enemy that had not only resisted but forced them into retreat. Their belief in their invincibility was shattered, and their leaders scrambled to respond with brutal efficiency. The Alliance's Council of Species convened immediately after the failure, and the mood was one of mounting fury. The human rebellion was no longer just a nuisance, it was an existential threat to their dominance. They could no longer afford hesitation. The rebellion would be crushed at all costs. Valar, the Valar strategist who had masterminded the first wave of the invasion, presented a chilling new plan. His proposal was simple but ruthless: they would escalate the conflict. Instead of continuing the drawn-out conventional warfare, the Alliance would use their most devastating weapon, one that had been kept secret for centuries, the Harbinger Protocol. The Harbinger Protocol was an ancient, galaxy-shaking weapon developed by the Alliance's most secretive race, the Xylar. These aquatic beings had long since mastered the art of gravitational manipulation and, in secret, had perfected a device capable of creating artificial black holes. Once activated, the device could rip entire star systems apart, pulling everything within its event horizon into oblivion. The Alliance's leaders, though reluctant, agreed to initiate the protocol. The galaxy had never seen the true power of the Alliance's hidden technology, and now it was humanity's turn to learn that there were powers far beyond anything they could comprehend. The device was deployed from a hidden station on the edge of the galaxy, far away from Earth. Once the Harbinger Protocol was activated, a rippling wave of gravity surged through space, sending shockwaves across the galaxy. Stars began to flicker, their light bending and distorting as if the very fabric of the universe was unraveling. The threat was clear: the Alliance could erase humanity from existence in an instant. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Catherine Stryker received intelligence reports that shook her to her core. The Alliance's movements were no longer subtle, they were preparing something devastating. The whispers from the Resistance had turned to panic as news of the Harbinger Protocol spread. The humans knew that if the Alliance succeeded in deploying this weapon, Earth itself would be reduced to nothing but a charred husk floating in the void. But Catherine knew that the battle was far from over. Humanity had faced down extinction before, this was simply the next chapter in their struggle for survival. There was still hope, but they needed to act quickly, and they needed to find a way to stop the Alliance's weapon. An emergency summit was called. Representatives from every corner of Earth, military leaders, scientists, engineers, and even diplomats, gathered to discuss their countermeasures. As they huddled in a fortified underground bunker, working furiously to understand the Harbinger Protocol's full implications, it became clear that their only chance lay in the human ability to adapt quickly and think outside the box. They couldn't match the Alliance's raw power head-on, but they could still exploit its weaknesses. Dr. Elena Vallon, a brilliant physicist who had been working with the military on new space defense technologies, proposed a daring plan. She believed that if humanity could develop a weapon capable of disrupting the graviton particles controlling the Harbinger device, they might be able to deactivate it. But this weapon, still in the theoretical stages, was extremely difficult to build, and even harder to deploy. To make matters worse, the device would only be vulnerable when the Alliance was preparing to fire it. There was a small window of opportunity, an opportunity that would be nearly impossible to exploit unless the humans could somehow infiltrate the very heart of the Alliance's fleet. Catherine Stryker didn't hesitate. She approved the plan, knowing full well the risks involved. A team of elite soldiers, scientists, and engineers were assembled to form a covert strike force. Their mission was simple yet perilous: infiltrate the Alliance fleet, reach the location of the Harbinger Protocol device, and deploy the countermeasure. The strike force set out on a desperate mission to space, using newly constructed stealth ships that could evade the most advanced Alliance sensors. It was a suicide mission, and everyone involved knew it. They would have to breach the heart of the Alliance's fleet, bypass their defenses, and somehow deactivate the weapon that could obliterate their entire world. On the front lines, however, Earth's forces were still engaged in battle. The human fleet, although battered by the relentless assaults of the Alliance, continued to harass the invaders, drawing attention away from the covert operation. Each battle was a test of endurance, as the Alliance sought to subdue humanity once and for all. Back in space, as the strike force approached the Alliance's command center, the sheer scale of the enemy armada became evident. Hundreds of ships orbited the central station where the Harbinger device was located. The operation was becoming more treacherous by the minute. The Alliance was not simply fighting to win, they were fighting for the total annihilation of humanity. As the team prepared to infiltrate, a voice crackled over the communication channel. It was Catherine herself. "Do not fail. We're counting on you. All of humanity is counting on you. Remember, they underestimated us before. They will do so again." The words hung heavy in the air as the team prepared for the impossible task ahead. Earth had faced countless obstacles before, but this was no ordinary war. It was a fight for the very future of the human race, and they would fight until their last breath. The humans' final hope rested on a ragtag team of soldiers, scientists, and engineers, all of whom knew that their mission was a gamble. They had one shot to infiltrate the heart of the Alliance's fleet and disable the Harbinger Protocol before it could be used to destroy Earth. But as the team slipped past the outer perimeter of the Alliance's defenses, they quickly realized just how close they were to the edge of oblivion. The stealth ships carrying the strike force were designed with the best human technology, but the Alliance's fleet was vast, and its sensors were far more advanced than anything Earth had ever encountered. It was a delicate dance, slipping past detection while maintaining a steady course toward the central station where the Harbinger device was located. The team moved in silence, each person focused on their task, knowing that one mistake could mean the end of everything they had fought for. Commander Marcus Shaw, a decorated veteran of Earth's Special Forces, led the team. His face was set in grim determination, but his thoughts were consumed by the risk that lay ahead. The mission was fraught with uncertainty, and they had no idea what kind of resistance they would face once they reached the Alliance's core. One thing was certain: they were far from prepared for the sheer scale of the Alliance's wrath. "We don't have long," Marcus said, glancing at the holographic map that floated above the ship's console. "Once we breach the fleet's outer defenses, we'll have about 30 minutes to reach the station before they realize we're here. Stay sharp." Dr. Elena Vallon, the physicist responsible for the device they carried to disable the Harbinger Protocol, adjusted her glasses nervously. She had spent months designing the countermeasure, a graviton pulse emitter capable of disrupting the graviton particles that powered the Alliance's weapon. But despite her confidence in the science, there was no telling whether the device would actually work, or whether they would even get the chance to use it. "We need to be ready to improvise," Elena said, her voice low but firm. "If the Alliance detects us before we can deploy the emitter, we'll be fighting for our lives. This technology is untested. We can't afford any mistakes." The stealth ships glided through the darkness of space, using every bit of the galaxy's expanse to stay hidden. The closer they got to the Alliance's heart, the more dangerous the mission became. The fleet was an imposing sight, a massive wall of warships orbiting the station where the Harbinger Protocol was housed. As they neared the heart of the fleet, a quiet alarm echoed through the ship. The Alliance's advanced sensor net had detected a breach, a small anomaly in the vast expanse of space. the strike force's ships had been detected. "Hold tight," Marcus shouted as the ship jerked to one side, avoiding a sudden energy pulse that shot toward them from a nearby destroyer. "Brace for evasive maneuvers. We're not out of this yet." The human vessels immediately began to execute evasive maneuvers, darting through asteroid fields and debris fields to avoid the incoming fire. The Alliance fleet responded instantly, launching pursuit ships and activating defense arrays, determined to wipe out the infiltrators before they could reach the station. As the strike force broke through the outer perimeter, they realized the true scale of their mission. The central station was not just a station, it was a fortress. The Harbinger Protocol was housed within an enormous facility, surrounded by shields and automated defense turrets. The humans would have to breach the station and plant the graviton pulse emitter before the Alliance could launch their devastating weapon. Marcus watched the approaching station on the ship's view screen, his heart pounding in his chest. The station's massive walls were lined with automated turrets, their targeting systems locked onto the approaching ships. "We don't have much time," Marcus said, his voice tense. "We have to land, get in, and get out before they can launch the weapon. Elena, you're with me. Everyone else, stay on standby." The ship landed on a secluded dock near the station's outer rim. The moment the landing bay doors opened, the strike force spilled out, armed to the teeth with advanced weaponry and equipment. Their mission was clear: disable the Harbinger Protocol, stop the annihilation of Earth, and survive the most perilous mission they had ever undertaken. As they moved through the dark, metal corridors of the station, Elena clutched the graviton pulse emitter tightly. Every step she took felt like an eternity. The corridors were quiet, the only sounds the echoes of their footsteps and the hum of the station's massive engines. But they knew they weren't alone. Every second, the Alliance's forces were closing in. "Status report," Marcus whispered into his comm device, his hand on the grip of his rifle. "Close. We're near the core," came the voice of Lieutenant Sarah Wicks, their scout and expert in covert operations. "Shields are still up, but we're approaching an access point. Be ready for resistance." And resistance was exactly what they got. As they approached the central chamber, a heavy blast door slid open in front of them, revealing a squad of Alliance soldiers. The soldiers, clad in advanced armor, raised their weapons as soon as they saw the humans. "We can't let them reach the device," one of the soldiers snarled, his voice electronically modulated. Without hesitation, Marcus fired first, his rifle releasing a volley of energy blasts that struck the Alliance soldiers with pinpoint accuracy. The strike force returned fire with deadly precision, moving swiftly and efficiently through the narrow corridors. But despite their training, the Alliance's forces were formidable. The humans fought for every inch of ground, pushing forward toward the heart of the station. "We're almost there," Marcus said, adrenaline coursing through his veins. "Elena, get that device to the core. We need to shut this down now." The gravity of their task was clear: Earth's fate was in their hands. But even as they made their final push toward the core, they knew that nothing would ever be the same again. Whatever happened next, the galaxy would never forget the rebellion of humanity. The Harbinger Protocol was in their sights. And the countdown to humanity's future had begun. The team fought through the station's labyrinthine corridors, the blaster fire echoing through the metallic halls, reverberating in their minds. With every step, the weight of their mission pressed harder on them. The fate of Earth and every living thing there was tied to this single moment. They couldn't afford to fail. The closer they got to the core chamber where the Harbinger Protocol was stored, the more the Alliance resistance intensified. Automated defense drones began to pour out of concealed alcoves, sending waves of blinding laser fire their way. Every time the humans thought they had a moment to breathe, more enemies appeared. Despite the growing tension, Elena's focus was unwavering. She cradled the graviton pulse emitter against her chest, every motion deliberate, every step calculated. They were close, too close to fail now. "Move faster," shouted Marcus, ducking behind cover as an explosive blast rocked the hallway. "We can't afford to stop." The team charged forward, the doors to the core chamber finally in sight. But just as they were about to reach it, an explosion shook the station, causing the lights to flicker. A deep, resonant hum filled the air, and an announcement crackled over the station's PA system. Alert, Harbinger Protocol nearing activation. Initiating emergency lockdown. Elena's blood ran cold. The Alliance wasn't just waiting to activate the device, they had already begun the countdown. There was no time to waste. The blast doors to the core chamber slammed shut with a deafening clang, and the strike force found themselves locked out. Behind them, the sounds of approaching reinforcements could be heard. The Alliance was closing in. "Elena!" Marcus barked. "Do we have a bypass?" I can try." Elena ran to the door's control panel, working frantically. The clock was ticking down, and her hands were shaking, knowing that every second was a precious one. Her mind raced, calculating the options, but she couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the edge of something much larger than just a mission. The weight of humanity's survival was now a burden too great to bear alone. With a soft beep, the panel displayed a warning: * access denied. Key code needed for override, *. "No time for this," Marcus said, slamming his fist against the control panel. "We need another way in. We have one option left." Elena's voice was grim. "The backup vents, the ones in the lower sublevels. We can access them and reach the core from the inside. It's risky, but it's the only way." Without hesitation, Marcus led the charge down a series of narrow maintenance tunnels, weaving through the station's belly, where the main security systems couldn't trace them. But every turn they took felt like it brought them closer to a dangerous end. Every vent, every maintenance shaft felt like an escape from certain death, but also a potential trap set by the Alliance. Meanwhile, Commander Marcus Shaw couldn't ignore the gnawing dread in the pit of his stomach. What if this plan failed? What if they were already too late? The thought was unbearable. Then, as they reached the sublevel access, a sudden realization struck Elena like a thunderclap. "Wait! The graviton pulse emitter, it's too powerful. If we use it inside the core chamber, we'll disrupt the gravitational balance, but there's a catch. We're not just deactivating the weapon, we'll be destabilizing the entire station. The core will collapse. It's a one-way ticket." Marcus stopped, frozen in place. The room around them was silent except for the distant hum of the station's systems. "You're telling me," Marcus's voice was tight, "if we fire this thing, we'll destroy the station? It's the only way to stop the Harbinger Protocol. It'll send shockwaves through the graviton field, and the entire station will implode. There's no stopping it once we deploy it." For a long moment, there was only silence. Each member of the strike force understood the gravity of Elena's words. To save Earth, they would need to sacrifice the entire station, and everyone aboard it, humans and aliens alike. Marcus looked over at his team. His soldiers, his comrades, the men and women who had fought and bled together, their faces grim but resolute. They were all in this together. "I'll do it," Elena said quietly. "I've designed the device. If anyone is going to make sure it works, it's me." Marcus gave a sharp nod. "We'll get you to the core. Once that's done, we run, no matter what." But even as they made their way to the core's location, the weight of the decision lingered in the air. The lives of everyone on the station, every single person aboard, including the enemy, would be forfeit. It wasn't just a war to save Earth anymore. It had become a race against time that would leave no survivors. Inside the core chamber, the immense machinery of the Harbinger Protocol hummed ominously. The graviton pulse emitter had been designed to deactivate it, but there was something else. Elena's voice was sharp as she moved to place the device. "I've adjusted the settings. When I fire this pulse, the station's core will collapse. We have maybe 5 minutes before everything goes critical. It'll take down the protocol, but it's a lot more than we bargained for." "We knew the risks," Marcus said, his voice firm. "Earth comes first. Always." Elena took a deep breath and activated the pulse emitter. As it hummed to life, the the station's artificial gravity seemed to waver, the air vibrating with energy. She positioned it just right, holding her breath, praying it would work. The sudden explosion of energy was deafening, and the walls of the core chamber seemed to groan under the strain. Elena felt a tremor beneath her feet as the very foundation of the station began to give way. The countdown began. "Time to go," Marcus barked. Without another word, the team sprinted for the exit. Behind them, the once invincible Alliance station began to collapse in on itself, the power of the graviton pulse triggering the station's ultimate failure. They didn't look back. They couldn't. But as they raced through the collapsing station, Marcus realized one painful truth. There was no going back to the world they had known. Their victory had come at an unimaginable cost. The universe had been forever changed, and the reckoning would soon follow. The shockwave from the collapsing station hit them just as they were nearing the escape pods, sending the walls around them vibrating violently. The strike force's final sprint felt endless, as though the very fabric of the station was tearing apart in response to the pulse that had ripped through it. Marcus Shaw was the first to reach the nearest escape pod. He slammed his hand against the door panel, sending a quick series of commands to initiate the launch sequence. The rest of the team followed, breathless and covered in sweat, knowing the seconds were ticking away. "Get in!" Marcus ordered, his voice barely audible over the loud mechanical whine of the destabilizing station. The escape pod's hatch closed with a heavy clang just as the station's artificial gravity flickered and failed. For a moment, everything went weightless. The team scrambled to secure themselves as the pod lurched, powered by a small but powerful engine meant to get them out of range before the station's core collapsed entirely. The escape pod shot away from the imploding station, rocketing through the debris field of the shattered Alliance vessel. From the viewport, Marcus and his team watched in grim silence as the massive structure collapsed inward, consumed by the gravitational pull of the now failing Harbinger protocol. It was a spectacle of destruction, an entire station, an entire fleet, torn apart in seconds. "We made it," Elena whispered, her voice a mix of disbelief and sorrow. "But did we? The damage we've done, they'll never forgive us." Marcus turned to her, his expression unreadable. "It wasn't our choice. We did what we had to. We saved Earth. That's what matters." The rest of the team remained quiet, each of them lost in their own thoughts. They had destroyed an entire piece of the Alliance's power, and with it, they had changed the course of history. But in doing so, they had also crossed a line. Thousands of lives, human and alien, had been lost in the destruction, and the repercussions would be felt across the galaxy for years to come. There was no turning back now. The escape pod continued to drift away from the wreckage, finally reaching a safe distance. But as they watched the distant explosion consume the remains of the station, a new fear began to sink in. The Alliance was wounded, but it wasn't dead. And they would come for revenge. "Where are we heading?" Lieutenant Sarah Wicks asked, breaking the silence. "Are we going back to Earth?" Marcus looked at the navigation system. The coordinates were already locked in, but there was no going home just yet. "No," he said, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. "We need to regroup, rebuild. Earth can't be left vulnerable. We'll send a signal, but we can't afford to rest. The Alliance will be looking for us, and we need to stay ahead." As the escape pod drifted through the cold void, a new sense of unity formed between the team. They had been thrust into the fires of war, and they had emerged scarred but stronger. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Back on Earth, the planet's leadership was still in the dark about the team's success. Catherine Stryker and the Global Council had been waiting, knowing the risks but trusting in the humanity of the strike force. The devastation caused by the Alliance's retreat had already begun to send ripples across the political landscape. The human race had struck back, but at what cost? The world had been forever changed, and they could only wait to see how the aftermath would unfold. For now, Earth was safe. The Alliance's immediate threat had been neutralized, but everyone knew this victory was only a temporary reprieve. A new war had begun, one that wouldn't be fought in the stars but within the galaxy's deepest alliances. the Galactic Alliance would not forget the insult humanity had dealt them. But the humans, for the first time, held the upper hand. They had proven something important to the galaxy. They were not just a species to be conquered. They were a force to be reckoned with. Back in space, the strike force moved toward a hidden rendezvous point, knowing that soon they would face a new challenge. Marcus looked out at the starry expanse, the remnants of the station slowly fading behind them. "We did it," Elena said quietly, her voice tinged with exhaustion. "We saved Earth, but we'll have to fight again, won't we?" Marcus nodded, eyes fixed on the distant stars. "This isn't over. The Alliance will come back, and they'll be angrier than ever. But we're ready. The galaxy underestimated us. That was their first mistake. This time, we won't give them another chance." A grim smile crept onto Marcus's face. "Humanity will be ready. We won't just survive. We'll win." And so, with their mission completed and their lives irrevocably changed, the human resistance began to prepare for the next phase of the war. The galaxy had underestimated them once, but humanity would rise, stronger and more determined than ever before. The Galactic Alliance had made its mistake, and now it would face the consequences. The war was far from over. It was only just beginning. In the cold silence of deep space, the escape pod carrying the remnants of humanity's strike force drifted towards its rendezvous point. The crew had just survived the impossible, destroying the Alliance's Harbinger protocol and taking down one of their strongest fortresses. But as they passed through the aftermath of their actions, a deep uncertainty clouded their thoughts. The Galactic War was far from over. The Alliance's retaliation was inevitable, and this victory, no matter how monumental, was just the beginning. The human race had become a beacon of resistance, a new player in a galaxy that had long assumed it was above the fray. Back on Earth, the first transmission from Marcus Shaw's team reached the Global Council. The news was a mix of relief and grim realization. Earth had been saved from annihilation, but the cost was enormous. In the wake of their triumph, Earth now stood at the precipice of an all-out war with the Galactic Alliance. "Commander Shaw, do you copy?" Catherine Stryker's voice came through, calm but urgent, over the transmission. "We copy," Marcus replied, his voice steady despite the turmoil within him. "We're on our way back. We'll need time to regroup. The Alliance is wounded, but it's not defeated." "We're ready," Catherine answered, her voice echoing with a determined confidence. "The world's watching, Marcus. We can't afford to hesitate. We need to prepare Earth for what's coming next. Your victory has made us a target." "I know," Marcus said. "But we won't let them wipe us out. The galaxy underestimated humanity once, but it won't happen again. Not while I'm still breathing." As the strike force docked at their designated shipyard, they were met with the sights of an Earth unprepared for the storm ahead. Earth had taken its first steps into the galactic theater of war, but the Council knew that every moment of complacency could cost them dearly. The Alliance's intelligence network had no doubt already caught wind of their victory, and the tides of war would soon begin to churn in unpredictable ways. In the dark corridors of an unmarked flagship within the depths of the Galactic Alliance fleet, a shadowy figure stood at the edge of a command console, looking out at the stars. The human rebellion had taken its first bold strike. The galaxy had never seen such a defiant species. But this figure, the Supreme Fleet Commander Rilkar, knew something that the humans did not. This was only the beginning of their punishment. "Ignorance is often the trait of the weak," Rilkar muttered to himself, eyes narrowed. "But humanity's arrogance is a far greater threat than even they realize." The Supreme Commander turned, addressing his officers. "Humanity has disrupted our plans, but they've made a critical mistake. The Harbinger Protocol was but one part of a much grander scheme. Earth's victory won't save them from what is coming. We'll show them what happens when they challenge the might of the Galactic Alliance." Rilkar's voice dropped to a low growl, his tone carrying the weight of an ancient vengeance. "It is time to make them understand. We will remind them that no one, no matter how small, dares to defy us. Back on Earth, as the Global Council began to set its defenses in motion, there was an undercurrent of hope. Humanity had fought back and won, but in the quiet moments, there was a growing sense that victory was fleeting. The Alliance would return, and they would come prepared. The humans' next moves would determine whether Earth would stand or fall. In a secluded underground bunker, Commander Marcus Shaw and his team gathered in a war room, examining a galaxy map that stretched across the table. The map was littered with new information, troop movements, Alliance fleet redeployments, and intelligence that had filtered in from their allies scattered throughout the galaxy. "We know the Alliance is reassembling its forces," Marcus said, his finger hovering over key locations. "They'll come at us with everything they have, and this time, we won't have the luxury of surprise." Elena Vallon, the physicist who had designed the graviton pulse emitter, leaned over the map, eyes scanning the information. "The Alliance is smart, but they're predictable. We'll need to use their own tactics against them." Sarah Wicks, the team's covert operations expert, studied the map closely. "The Alliance has a weakness. They rely too heavily on their centralized command. If we can hit their command centers and disrupt their communications, we can cripple their strategy before they even know what hit them." Marcus smiled grimly. "We'll need to hit them fast, hard, and keep them off balance. This time, we don't just react. We take the fight to them." The rest of the team nodded in agreement. They had been through the fire before, and they knew the risks. But this time, they were ready. Humanity had taken its first steps as a force to be reckoned with in the galactic arena, and they weren't going to back down. As the days passed, Earth prepared for the inevitable war. New alliances were forged with scattered species who had previously been too afraid to take a stand against the Galactic Alliance. The rebellion was growing, its spark now spreading through the galaxy like wildfire. But for every victory humanity celebrated, the Alliance took careful note. Rilkar, the Supreme Fleet Commander, had already set his plans in motion. His fleet was rebuilding, and the Harbinger Protocol's failure had only reinforced his belief that Earth needed to be wiped out, not as a simple conquest, but as a message to the rest of the galaxy. The race had begun. Humanity had struck a blow against the overwhelming might of the Galactic Alliance, but their enemies were relentless, and they would not rest until they had destroyed every last vestige of human resistance. As Marcus and his team prepared for their next mission, they knew they had only one choice: fight back, no matter the cost. Their determination was their greatest weapon, and they would use it to its fullest. The war for the galaxy had begun, and humanity was no longer the underdog. The reckoning had come, and the Alliance would soon understand what it meant to underestimate Earth. The future of the galaxy now rested on humanity's shoulders. The battle had only just begun.